Hey everyone, and welcome to the Mic'd Avengers podcast, where we focus on martial arts and action cinema, but definitely delve into much more. My name is Jason from Martial Arts Theater 3000. I've been a lifelong fan of martial arts movies from Bruce Lee to the Venom Mob, Bruceploitation, and everything in between.
My name's Dragon, aka the Fanatical Dragon on YouTube. I also write the Blu-ray reviews for Eastern Heroes magazine right here in the UK. I'm about 4 decades into this love affair with East Asian cinema, specifically action cinema. Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan and the Shaw brothers got me into Hong Kong films, but unlike my buddy Jason, I've seen a whole bunch of Japanese, Indonesian and South Korean action flicks too. So over the coming episodes, every so often, we're going to force feed him something he has not seen.
And I'm Shaun, also known as Food for Thought. It all started for me at the tender age of 14, where I discovered Jackie Chan's Drunken Master. From there, I kind of delved into old school Kung Fu, and that has been my passion for 30 plus years now. I also started delving into all realms of Asian cinema, and I'm very happy to say that these days I have a pretty strong passion for kind of dark Korean thrillers. If you like what you hear and you're enjoying the podcast, please give us a like, share and subscribe. And please enjoy this episode of the Mic'd Avengers.
Welcome, Kung Fu believers, once again to the Mic'd Avengers podcast, and this is episode 21 for those of you keeping track. I'm the Fanatical Dragon, aka Johnny, and I'm joined by my two erstwhile brothers in martial arts mayhem, Shaun over at Food for Thought. Say hello, Shaun.
Hello, everyone.
And of course, Jason from Martial Arts Theater 3000. Say hello, Jason.
How's it going, everyone?
And we are immensely excited to be breaking our flow a little bit this month and actually doing something incredibly current. So I think this is our first time ever covering a movie that is still playing in theaters around the world. And we are diving into Kenji Tanigaki's phenomenal The Furious. Technically from 2025, though it's really just made it to international cinemas now in 2026. I have a couple of little synopses that we'll very quickly run through, and then I'm desperate to hear these two's thoughts because we've been on radio silence since we've all seen it. I was a little bit late to the party because it only just opened in the UK this past Friday, which was the 26th of June. So if you're wondering why we didn't get here at the beginning of the month, that is why. Damn you, Lionsgate UK. But our synopsis, going to Google first, which is the lengthier of the two, tells us, after Wang Wei's daughter is kidnapped by a criminal network, his only ally is Naven, a journalist whose wife has mysteriously disappeared. Fueled by a furious vengeance, the unlikely duo finds themselves in an explosive martial arts showdown against a relentless gang of thugs. And jumping over to IMDb, which is a little bit more succinct and to the point, which I appreciate, tells us a father fights fiercely against ruthless kidnappers to save his abducted daughter. And that is all they're giving us, which is all you need to go into a movie like this, because we're not here for its densely plotted kind of thematic structure. We're here for the mayhem, of which there is an ample amount. I'm straight off the bat just going to say I absolutely loved this movie. I didn't love my cinema going experience of it, but we'll get into that later on. We had a pretty rough co-crowd with us, sadly. There's a weird thing that happens that we've noticed a lot in this particular cinema. It's strange, and it's a cinema with a membership, so there's a lot of people who go there all the time, but they laugh at basically everything. So for the entire movie, it was as if it was like Talladega Nights. So they laughed through absolutely every single fight scene, at every single beat. There are definitely a couple of beats in the movie that were designed to be funny, but there certainly wasn't as many that would warrant.
That's a grindhouse thing, but in a grindhouse, you're usually watching a grindhousey movie that even when it's just this is like,
this is a new trend.
It's
this
very
is a new trend. People laughing. It happens not only with violence, but with nudity and even sex scenes. The more I'm finding people laugh at those scenes, maybe out of awkwardness. I don't know, but I hear it more and more.
It's real strange. And the case of the guy who was sitting right beside me, who I legitimately lost about maybe 5-10 minutes of the plot because I was fantasizing in my head if I could get away with kicking him in the face, if there would be any repercussions. Like if I kick him in the face, will I get taken out of the cinema, or could I just sell that it wasn't me?
It would be that kick that Shaun often posts, is the one that goes straight up like to the side. You'd have to
he was just like 2 seats along from me. There was like an empty seat, and then there's this guy. But literally the whole time, and sorry for your earbuds, those who are listening, he basically did this.
Oh God!
my
But yeah,
lord!
at first I thought, has he got breathing difficulties? Then it was
Yeah.
and then
You were getting ready
he's
for-
just, he's just an
You're getting
asshole.
ready for the Heimlich maneuver. You thought he was like, choking.
Yeah.
It's like,
And
yeah.
we had it when we went to see Fist of Fury as well, which was real strange because that's kind of not really a comedy either. And we even had it in Get Out, which is the one that I found the strangest. Like through all the
Wow.
most serious, intense moments of Get Out, just
Oh,
in
that
that
ruins
particular
it.
cinema. So yeah, that put to one side. Thankfully, it didn't stop our enjoyment of the film. The volume was cranked pretty loud, and I just tried to kind of engage and focus with what was on the screen. And what was on the screen was just phenomenal. Really, I definitely did see it again. I think it comes out on digital alarmingly quickly because it's not
July
really getting...
14th here.
Yeah, man. I think it's probably going to be similar over here. There's not been a stitch of press over here. Lionsgate UK have made not a single promotion, not a single social media post, absolutely nothing. So our cinema was probably about, I'd say 2/3 empty. It wasn't that many bums in seats. I noticed that some of the screenings in London have been a bit more sold out. But anyway, we're getting into the minutiae when we should be getting into the meat of this incredible action spectacular. So as I mentioned, directed by Kenji Tanigaki and deliciously so for me with action direction by the phenomenal Kensuke Sonomura. This is our first time getting a chance to speak about Kensuke and Kenji on the channel, actually, on our podcast. I'm delighted that we get to dive into both of those wonderful fellows' work with a phenomenal cast, who I'm sure we will cover in due course. But I've waited long enough. I can't wait no more. Guys, tell me what you thought. Who wants to jump in first?
Do you want me to go first, or?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, so people listening, you heard in the intro, we set it up talking about how we've been doing these interventions where I'm so into old school Kung Fu movies, but along the way, Shaun and Dragon have been getting me into the modern films I've not, always been as warm to and avoided pretty much, So they've taken me on a nice path. And it started with the raid. We had pit stops with The Night Comes for Us, which I definitely have to touch on. And the raid 2 was my last one. I mean, we also had... what's the one, the devil? I always say that wrong.
I saw the devil, the Korean movie. That's kind of a different, its own sort of thing. That's not really not really an action movie in the same way.
Right. But it just really, you guys have like acclimated me to this kind of vibe and everything.
It's a lot of darkness, a lot of dark, grim movies there.
And I've also mentioned that the strange thing is of course, I mean, Fight Club is one of my favorite movies, but that look, or if you watch Fincher's Social Network, just that, and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, it's a certain look. I wouldn't just call it digital. It's like darkened. Everything is like bleak. So it's interesting.
Have you seen the film 8mm with Nick Cage?
Yeah.
That has the same kind of vibe.
Yes.
Dark, dingy, kind of underbelly.
Yeah, and the cinematography. So what it was for a lot of these interventions was I get that type of cinematography and there's like action in it. And at first it's just weird to see that. I'm so used to just the other style. It's definitely a big like break, like it's like a dividing line. So when this started, I was like, okay, we're in. It feels that same vibe. I don't even know it's like has a lens of everything. It's not very colorful. It's kind of like everything's slightly muted a bit. It's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like if you play a video game, of course, like Mario 64, but if you play like an Elder Scrolls game, the grass is all like super green, like an Oblivion.
Right.
But if you play Resident Evil 4, everything has this like darkened grade look to it, So it gives a lot of realism. I saw that out the gate. I was like, oh, we're in, and it was cooking. I might hold off on my overall. I will tell you, and I do have to get a little gripe out of the way. I just want to throw this away. When the first fight started with, I believe her name was Maria, his wife, who's the character's name. She's the reporter.
I'm going to do a mini interjection at this point.
Okay. Stop the press.
I suspect, Jason, that will be your first time seeing that particular actress.
Yes.
She is Jija Yanin. That is the principal star of Chocolate. She's a Thai actress.
You guys have mentioned that a few times.
Of kind of martial arts mayhem in her background, and seeing her was a very welcome sight because it's been a while since we've seen her in a new movie, and I kind of knew from the second that we saw her, like, this is not going to go quietly, and it didn't. So please carry on.
Yeah, it had. I saw the parallels to The Night Comes for Us. You have Joe Taslim like facing the gun against the little girl, but he held off. This one, the arrow went right in the little girl. I mean, it was brutal. And like, we're setting this up hard. We're not holding back. And then boy, that first fight scene came in quick. I mean, it had to have been what, 40, like a minute or something. It seemed really fast in.
Yeah.
It reminded me of like when I went to see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. I can't remember the guy's name. He was super young, the Asian actor. He went on to a lot. The pizza delivery boy had that opening fight scene within like 20 seconds of the opening. That I love a really quick fight scene. And I saw the body movements. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Whoa, this is weird. It's not quite jujitsu. It's like, I don't know, like, Twister meets parkour meets they're like going off of each other's bodies to like swing people around. But I started to notice my only gripe was some sort of frame manipulation that I wouldn't call it undercranking. I had to look it up, and they said Kenji uses this thing. I guess he does a variable frame thing. He changes it based on the speed of a punch if he wants it to look like a certain way. But I don't know what it was throughout the whole movie, even when not in fight scenes, when someone's pushing a cart or something, or there's like an action shot, what it looked like to me is when I was trying to play video games on a computer I should not have been trying to play a game on. You know, sometimes you're like 14 frames and that's horrible. But if you can get it up to like 21, you can almost kind of play it, and you get to a town and it slows down. This was like when the frames, it also reminded me of my friend who was in the film, he got a 24 frame per second, and we got to see that, like he filmed it. I was like, wow, that looks like a real movie. It was like super weird compared to a camcorder. This felt like lower to me than that. You know, it felt like even a few more frames are missing, and I get the effect, but I had trouble with that a little bit. Something like my eyes, some sort of strobing or something was going on that for me, I don't think it would bother most people, to be honest. It seemed stylized in a weird way that was kind of like, oh, okay. And I had to adjust, kind of how, like you said, when you watched Iron Monkey the last time, Dragon, you know the undercranking there, you adjust and you enjoy it. It's kind of like I had to just do a slight adjustment, and then I was fine. I saw it in a lot of moments, but I just got past it and said, it's not my favorite, whatever that is. I wish I could just, you know, when you watch Super Cop and Jackie fights, you just go, holy crap, you don't think of something going on unless like a slight undercrank, but you don't think of, you know, something was making.
I wasn't conscious of it at all. We spoke about this a bit before we started recording, but it's not something that I was conscious of when we were in the theater watching it.
Me either.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. For me, it was on the big screen. I really noticed it. When I watched it at home, I wanted to make sure I wasn't just too close, because I was in the front row, not the horrible front row, your neck's like that. I was like in the front row before the drop off, which is usually good. But it was kind of like, you know, sometimes you have to look left and right to see the whole screen. It's that like up there. So I was like, maybe I was just super in the mix. So I watched it on television. I was like, oh, no, I see it. But then when I got it down to my phone, I didn't see it. So I don't know. But anyway, let me get that out of the way. I actually thought I'd give the gripe at the end. But besides that little caveat, oh, man, this is like, dude, holy crap. I have to say, this hit marks that I've been lacking in a lot of movies for a long time. You know, in Ghostbusters, they bring in the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It's a classic moment. And yeah, you might go, oh, I was 7 and it's nostalgia. No, they were setting up things when you saw him with the bow and arrow, when you saw the hammer. They were like, it was by design creating these classic moments that I have to say, the Raid 2 and stuff had classic moments, but this is like storyboard-esque classic moments. You know what I mean? It's not like, hey, pick that up and they'll remember you're holding this cheese grater or whatever. This is like, no, this guy, his thing is the bow and arrow, you know, and this hammer. It's like these comic booky, and some of those shots, whenever he just came with the bow and arrow and walking, I was like, man, this is instant classic. It's just like instant classic, you know? And some of the moves, the bratty son, when I believe it was him, he put a freaking knife in his feet and did a handstand and stabbed the guy with that. I was like, oh shit, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. You know, it's like, holy fuck, what is going on? I loved it. All the fight scenes were amazing. I wanted maybe a little more story. Once he was running after that truck and I saw the runtime, I'm like, dude, we're only like 20 minutes in. I know this is going to be just a barn burner Raid style for the rest of the thing. I maybe wanted like a little longer, and they did slow it down. They went back to the police corruption and everything. It went, so it wasn't just like a straight away. But guys, blown away, loved it. The choreography, and it fixed the problem I had with The Night Comes for Us. Shaun very astutely, or how he described how you like how the hit points are insane, and it's just like these guys can get run over by 10 trucks, and what is going to finally kill them? You know, it's like the Michael Myers effect, where this guy's, or the Terminator effect. They finally had to put him in whatever molten lava, you know, to finally take him out. this had that, I'd say even more than The Night Comes for Us, but kind of how you framed that influenced me. And I felt it this time in our theater, by the way, which was packed to the brim. It was like, I couldn't even find a seat that had two. There was a couple with one next to it, packed to the brim. Even that area where you wouldn't want to sit, where you're like, I don't want to sit front down there. They had people down there. And this was at like 12:50 on a Sunday. So who knows? Cool. This is,
wow.
This is so I'll just say these people were very reactionary, but not laughing at the parts they want. I could hear people commenting on their own. The Hammers really got a lot of response. And, great crowd reaction. People love it. They were in the lobby talking like, oh man. And just, it really was an exhilarating, amazing moment. I love the plot points. Couple little things were a little strange, but like, who cares really? Like, if you want to nitpick, like I said, you get in the podcast mode. I don't think half the people watching wouldn't catch this little frame rate thing I'm noticing. It's just a slight stylization, but I just can't believe some of that fights. And I have to say, I think is it Brian Lee or Brian Lee?
I believe it's Lee.
Okay. Brian Lee, I think stole the show. I mean, when he came back and this is a big show to steal. We got Taslim back, Jay, or how do you say it again? We practiced before we went on.
I believe it's
What is it?
𝘍𝘶𝘳𝘶𝘴.
𝘍𝘶𝘳𝘴. I'm gonna have trouble with that one. But he is so gritty. He has a look to him that, sometimes you have to be told their backstory. You can see his backstory on him. You don't need, it's kind of like,
Jason, was it your first time seeing him too?
Yes, it was. Okay. Yeah. Unless I know him, I think he was in some old stuff I might have seen though.
He started his career age 9. He played Jet Li's son in My Father the Hero. If you've seen that movie.
I've not seen that. I've seen a decent amount of Jet Li, but I didn't see that one though. Okay. I'll have to look back. No, he is badass. Taslim, it's cool. He seems a little older, of course, but it's neat to see him. He's blazing cigarettes. But that Brian Lee, when he came back, my crowd just went nuts when he was back. And in that hammer, I don't want to steal some of your guys. I want you to celebrate too. But that hammer hit, that was the hammer hit, like heard around the martial world. That one, when he first went out. And when he came back, that's rare for me to have that when he's fighting two pairs of, and they're fighting each other. Brilliant. The design, everything. And there's so many amazing moves. I have to collect the ones. I thought of the knife one and the handstand. That blew my mind. Spoiler alert. I mean, people have seen this probably before they listen, but Taslim, that moment where he dies, that's just brutal and weird. And it's well thought out, and just everything. And boy, does it take Yes, and I guess his neck got bit out.
Maybe one of the points where people laughed the most in my.
Oh man, I'm sorry for that. Please go see it again. Oh man, why would you laugh at that at all?
I think it was. I don't want to kind of steal this back from you, but I put it down to the fact that it was a lot of awkwardness. People just didn't know how to react.
But you said something that summed it up for me. What it is I did do that AMC stub list for a while when in Los Angeles, and you would go see things you would never. I went out. I was seeing strange things with William Dafoe playing. What's his name? Who's the guy that had his ear? The artist that lost his ear. Van Gogh. Yeah, he was playing Van Gogh. I was seeing stuff I normally wouldn't just go see, but you can see 3 to 4 movies a week. So I was like, for $20-some. So I think a lot of that crowd, if they're doing the membership, it's kind of, they're not taking this seriously. So they think, we're just going to, that's disrespectful.
And
but
you can drink booze in that as well. So
there you go.
I'll do it.
Okay. Yeah. But wrapping it up, I was blown away. This really, it took it to another level. The Raid 2 is so good. I think I prefer the fighting in the Raid 2, how it's filmed a bit. Very different. I might prefer how that's filmed. This is, this is strange. I wouldn't know how to describe the fighting. It's like, like in Crippled Avengers, I absolutely love that. But there are the moments where you can see they're helping each other, go through the ring, they hold the ring, or they do something where it's set up. They do things that they did have to set up the other guys, but it wasn't obvious. They used their bodies to swing around, and you kind of have to let them do it, but they hid that. So it seemed like the guy was like, what's going on? But you knew he needed him to blot it, chaining people, swinging across bodies in a strange, wow. I mean, I watched a Brian Lee interview this morning. He was saying the final fights took 2 weeks. I think he's talking about the one, I guess, obviously before the bicycle fight at the very end, but that final melee took 2 weeks to do. And guys, I loved it. In the last fight where they had the bicycles up, I was like, oh, this is strange. Like, is it gonna like get like bad for a second? I just didn't know. And they even made that work. They did have the comical moment where the spoily brat guy was like so on death's door that he's like, I gotta go to work or whatever he was saying. He was just but blown away, amazing. I don't care where it fits in with the other ones. This and Raid 2, it's right up there. It's kind of like a new era here, you know? I mean, all of these are new characters you guys were introducing me to, but this felt like a greatest hits. I get to see them together. Like, I mean, we're missing a few, but it just seems like a melding of worlds. I want you guys to tell me about. I don't know that offhand, that choreographer. I thought, didn't the director also do a lot of choreography? I thought he would have maybe did this. So it's like
it's a very nice fusion between the two guys who it's worth pointing out. Well, in fact, no, I'll do this in a minute. Shaun,
that's it. Blown away. Yes, let's hear it, Shaun, on yours.
I had a bit of a rocky journey with this film in that when I first heard that it was coming out, I was obviously over the moon. I'm just like, oh yeah, this sounds like an exciting new film. Then the hype got kind of through the roof at one point, and then when they released that fight scene with 𝘍𝘶𝘃𝘴 and 𝘍𝘶𝘪𝘰𝘶𝘴, just a little snippet of that fight scene, I was like, I don't think this is going to be what I want it to be. The fight was cool, but I was just like, it doesn't feel like I want it to be. And then I was just like, well, I'm not watching any more clips, any more trailers, nothing. So I went in to the theater kind of like, is this going to be the film that I want it to be, or is it going to be a letdown? And I was kind of like lost. I didn't know what it would be. My wife and I went to the theater at 10 a.m. and no one was there. We were the only two people in the theater.
That would have been
I'm laughing. Yeah. That's a devout fan. 10 a.m. That's like, they're like, hold on, we still need to turn on the lights in the hall. You're like, I didn't even know you could see it.
Something like that kind of happened. They let the trailers run far too long. But anyway, so we kicked our feet up. We completely relaxed in there. And I can speak to Jason's point where, like, within 20 minutes, I was just like, oh, yeah, I know what this film's going to be, and it's going to just blow my mind. And I think you can speak about this film at depth. I think there's a lot of things to talk about with this film. But I will say this. Easy my favorite film of the year so far. Even though it's meant to have come out last year, but fuck it, I'm saying this year. Possibly the best martial arts film I've seen in the last 10 years, at least.
I love it.
I would say. I don't think there's much that's beaten this. I don't even go back further because...
Well, what year's the Raid 2? I can't remember offhand.
Oh, that's a good question.
Like 2013, 2014, I think.
Okay. Well, I missed the 10 year.
Let me say this. The Raid 2 is a better film than The Furious. The Furious is a better martial arts film than The Raid 2, in my opinion. I think the Furious as a film is like a structured, well plotted, well characterized film. You know, it's got its shortcomings. It's maybe not the best in the world. And I have a little nitpick like you, Jason, but it wasn't about the frame cuts because I didn't specifically notice that. The CGI in this film is fucking abysmal at times. Like there's some really bad CGI.
I didn't clock that, to be honest. You talk about the blood.
Yes. And no, not necessarily the blood. It's actually when someone falls on the ground, there's like an impact shot and it has CGI on it to make it look rougher than it was. And I think it was Brian Lee when he falls off the truck. I think I noticed it there. And I noticed it and immediately went, bad CGI, and then immediately went, I don't care, this film's awesome. And that's the one thing I really appreciate about this film, that even if, by the way, it doesn't have a lot of shortcomings, but the little shortcomings it does have, it doesn't matter because the action is so flawless. I saw no problems with the action whatsoever. I have no gripes. And the best thing about it, and this is what I really appreciate The Furious for, is that I know I can go back to The Furious again and again and again and see new moves. Things I did not notice last time because there's so much shit going on screen at once. And the way they like kind of snake through each other's bodies and things like that, I know that I can pick apart this film for generations to come. I'll be speaking about this one on my deathbed, I imagine. And I'm really looking forward to that, just being able to kind of pick it apart, not in a bad way, but just pick apart the moves and just really enjoy it for that. I do think some people are kind of trying to analyze this film like you would analyze, I don't know, The Shawshank Redemption. And I think they're kind of, I've seen a few think pieces online about it. And I think they're missing the point a little bit. I don't think this is an attempt at making, I don't even think this is an attempt at making The Raid 2. This is action through and through. This is body language through and through, and quite frankly, it's visual poetry to me. Like I get the same sensation from this style of action than I do about Crispy Shapes from '78. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. And it had so much variety, and it did feel like it ramped up. It kind of slowly ramped up, and then gives you that massive fight at the end, and it just hit every point that it needed to for me. And I just love when something so good about a film just overwhelms everything else. And I think the action in this film just does overwhelm anything else. And if someone came to me and said, I'm sure you both noticed the dubbing, right? A lot of people are talking about the dubbing right now and kind of shitting on it a little bit. But I'm like, who cares? Who cares? There's just so much amazing stuff going on screen. Why would I care about the dubbing? And then Kenji has said that the dubbing was actually a throwback to 1990s Kung Fu films, which is really interesting. So,
I only caught it at that younger policeman. I thought it was ADR. I mean, you could tell. I didn't know if there was a different actor, probably on some of them, but I just noticed at one point he said the exact thing you heard, but it was like pretty off, like when he was in the police station. But again, that's just like a little, I don't know. It's like saying this $1 million smells funny, but you're holding a briefcase of $1 million.
Exactly.
But it was only for 1 second.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an Easter egg.
Yeah, apparently, like he says it's an homage to. Apparently, there's tons of Kung Fu cinema Easter eggs in this film.
Oh, yeah.
Kenji has said that.
I want you to finish on, but what the idea to do it all in English was, you think, a universal choice because they wanted to be appealed to
internationally.
Yes,
yeah, okay. Because I expected straight, original language across the board and to be reading, and I was like, oh, okay, we're in an English film now. So.
Yeah,
it's a weirdly very international production. So I think the money came predominantly from mainland China and Hong Kong, with a little bit of additional funding from the States, from XYZ Films, who are, I think, LA based. The cast is spectacularly diverse in terms of like where they've kind of come from. So we have a couple of Indonesians. We've got the Thai actress that we saw at the beginning. Brian Lee is American Vietnamese. And then our main guy is from mainland China. So we have a bunch of different languages to deal with on set, even just to be able to communicate. And our two principal, although Kenji's Cantonese is very good, I'm not too sure how well he speaks Mandarin, but both the movie's director and its action director are both Japanese. There's a place to interject at this point that both, although they didn't go at the same time, both Kenji Tanigaki and Kensuke Sonomura are both graduates of the same action training school. They both went to Yasaki Karate's action school in Japan. So
yeah, you did tell me, as building up to this, you explained that, and it's a Hong Kong-esque Japanese like hybrid.
Much so. Yeah. So I think that, whereas across the fence at Sonny Chiba's action school, they were basically training people more to be able to do what we'd think of as being like tokusatsu style, which is more, I guess, like Power Rangers for American audiences, right? Which has got a very different kind of visual language, whereas both Kensuke and Kenji were largely trained in a very Hong Kong-esque style, not just in terms of the action that they were performing, but also how you were filming and blocking the action. So it's very rooted in Hong Kong traditions. That was definitely the inspiration for both of those guys starting off. And Kenji followed the disciples' path. He went straight over to Hong Kong as soon as he was old enough to do so and start trying to get work in the film industry in Hong Kong, and did initially as a stuntman. He was actually the first Japanese native ever to be accepted into the Hong Kong Stuntmen's Association, and he worked extensively with Donnie Yen, so starting on Donnie's stunt team as a performer, then progressing up to being a choreographer and action designer with Donnie. So I think kind of his big massive shift came around the time of SPL and Flashpoint, which is I think being driven a little bit by Donnie Yen's desire as well, where they started moving into a very jiu-jitsu and MMA based slant, right, which was quite radical in Hong Kong choreography at that point in time. And then they can sort of
I noticed that. So Kenji was the amazing Flashpoint fight. That's why I thought maybe he choreographed this, but he choreographed that, but didn't direct that one, right?
I think the line blurs quite a bit. He went back to Japan at a certain point and worked on the Rurouni Kenshin movies, which now that we've opened the door to Kenji, we will absolutely be doing a lot more Kenji movies podcast, now that Jason's appetite's been whetted. But the stuff he did in Rurouni Kenshin, very radical in a different way, where he was starting to bring in a lot of Hong Kong wire work, but used in really unexpected ways, where they started using wire work not to lift people up into the sky, but to push them down to the ground. So he would have people running parallel to the ground, assisted by wires to basically be able to make it happen. So it looks like they're almost running in like a straight line parallel along the floor, and it works beautifully well.
Are their feet on the ground or not?
Yeah. You sort of see them like running in a big arcing circle. I always describe it as being like, if you ever watch The Simpsons, you do that little thing that they would always do in the Three Stooges, where Homer would go down on one arm and he'd kick himself around.
Oh yeah,
whoop, 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 right? I think that's just a Three Stooges gag. But I first remember seeing that in The Simpsons. But to my eyes, that's kind of what a lot of what was going on in Rurouni Kenshin felt like.
You can get a big lean going. You can get a big lean is the point. Huge. Yeah, because it's like the Drunken Master 2, when he would hold those positions. And to be honest, I didn't even know it was wire work when I was 15 or whatever. But you could hold a position.
I still don't see it. Like, my brain doesn't register it as wire work when I'm watching it in Rurouni Kenshin.
No,
it just looks incredible. And so Kenji was basically working on that, and they also, I don't want to spend too much time on Rurouni Kenshin because we'll get there at some point, but he kind of like developed much more realistic swords and much better footwear for the performers. They could basically start doing full contact sword play, because he'd come from this Hong Kong world where all the punches and the kicks were connecting, where traditionally in Chambara you were not really doing super connective sword fights. So he basically brought a lot of those Hong Kong techniques back to Japanese cinema. And Kensuke 𝘍𝘶𝘪, he didn't attend the Karate's action school at the same time. He was a couple of years after, because he's a tiny bit younger. And he started finding a lot of work in computer games. So I think much higher budgets for computer games in Japan. So he would do an awful lot of the choreography for cutscenes and games like Devil May Cry and some of the Resident Evil games and Metal Gear Solid. Wow. But was also kind of working on live action films, which Japan at this point in time has not a huge desire to put funding into making action movies. So all the stuff that Kensuke 𝘍𝘶𝘪 worked on, generally very, very low budget in terms of his live action. And he was usually working as action director for other filmmakers, but periodically would direct his own things, which he's always described as being just a hobby, really. He's not got a burning ambition to be a director in his own right, but he has directed a number of films, and they're fucking incredible. And
they are.
Him starting to have his own little evolution. And he made this movie called Hydra, which he got really interested in the idea of. He was watching a lot of boxing, like traditional old school boxing, and he became really intrigued by the idea of like grappling, because grappling as a practice in boxing wasn't something that he felt he'd ever really seen in martial arts choreography. So he started kind of incorporating grappling a lot into his choreography, and this kind of evolved into like grappling with a version of the stuff that I've just told you that Kenji was doing with wires, where you would have people running around people, but he would use, instead of using a wire to support the performer, they would be leaning against each other. So by leaning into the other person, they could run around to get to the other side to do a strike. And
so that's like the evolution of what we're seeing here. Okay. I love that's a great backstory, and I wonder where that came from, because it's new to me. It's real new.
For him, it came from not something that he always wanted to do, something he hadn't seen before. So he was always wanting to try and find new ways to make the choreography more interesting. And so grappling was the kind of first thing that they kind of brought in to Hydra that made it kind of quite radically different. And his other thing that he realized that when American movies, or when in Hong Kong movies, people were generally always trying to connect the end of the fist to whatever they were hitting. So it was end of fist to face, end of fist to body. And he didn't really want to kind of go the same sort of route. So they started working out this way of being, okay, the point of connection is no longer going to be the end of the fist. The point of connection is going to be the wrist. So he'd say to all his performers, when you punch, I want you to try and get your wrist on the top of the person's head and make contact that way, right? And when the other person is moving to get their head underneath the hand to help facilitate getting their head to the wrist, when you do that at speed, it looks like incredible near misses. It looks like you're getting so close to punching the person in the face and they're just missing at the last second, but it's hyper controlled. So he started working that into almost all of his fist-based blows. They're always kind of aiming for the...
Oh, so the intention is to be a near miss. I thought maybe when the camera's behind the head, that looks like even more of a hit. But you're saying no, it's not supposed to be a hit. It's like it's realistic.
He mixed it up quite a lot, and I think he choreographed all the Baby Assassins movies. And although he didn't direct those films, the choreography that he'd worked out in Hydra, he basically just expanded on and really leaned into in Baby Assassins, because he had two very lightweight actresses having to go up against much, much larger people. And so he went even more into boxing, and he took basically spent a lot of time analyzing the fights of Inoue and the Monster. He was kind of like incredible Japanese prize fighter with a spectacular knockout to win ratio. I think he's almost all of his fights won in knockouts. So he's incredibly powerful, but he's very small. And so he kind of basically tried to use an awful lot of these techniques when he was doing the choreography for the babies. And those films, because of the nature of the two girls who are playing the leads, the first one of the two girls, one had a lot of stunt experience, the other one didn't. And so he lent more into making the choreography for the girl who was more experienced, but starting to try and give the other girl a bit more to do. When you get to the second Baby Assassins movie, they wanted to change the dynamic, and they kind of wanted to start looking at more group fights. And so they set up the storyline in Baby Assassins 2 as being two rival new hitmen who've arrived on the scene who basically want to start working as hitmen. It's two brothers. One of those two brothers is Joey Iwanaga, who played your spoilt bratty son in The Furious.
Oh, okay.
So both Shaun and I are well aware that this was a leg man through and through.
So that
spectacular stuff. In Baby Assassins
so you have
2.
to admit you didn't have as great of a transformation. I did not see that coming.
I knew that was coming, and I knew from the way that he had the glasses that we're doing a little Ken 𝘍𝘶𝘪𝘰𝘶𝘴 Drunken Master 2 tribute.
Oh, he totally reminded. But when that moment happened, it took me even a second to. I thought he was like. Because here's another thing, and I think, Shaun, you put your exclamation on your take. I mean, you loved it. I wanted you to like wrap that up if you needed, but I wanted to say this real quick. When you talked about it ramping up, do you notice the violence really ramped up? Like halfway or 3/4, I was like, okay, this isn't like The Night Comes for Us with like gore. By the end, I think it maybe was that scene. The gore was here suddenly. It's like, whoa, they're really bringing in, and I can't even remember some of the ice pick and. Wow. But even when that started, I thought he just had such a rage that he was getting some moves off, and these guys were just elderly and of course couldn't fight back. But slowly I was like, okay, wait, this guy has some legit, like super secret moves coming out. And then he was like this menacing, it was great. And he still held on to that spoily brat throughout, which was nice. He didn't just transform into like some bodybuilder or something. He kept
it's a great performance, and he's phenomenal in Baby Assassins too. But so I think Baby Assassins 2, they start to work out a lot more the dynamic of group fights. So having 4 people all in motion at the same sort of time. And then Kensuke went back to directing his own movie legitimately. He made a movie called Bad City, which is a couple of really large brawls in it. So huge amounts of people attacking and fighting at the same sort of time, and working out how to keep choreography fresh and not just looking like people are at the side waiting their turn, trying to keep it very kind of involved and very dynamic.
Dynasty Warriors style a little bit.
Yeah. And he went back to directing very recently with a film called Ghost Killer. And again, don't want to just run through both these guys' cinematography, but the point being that independently, both Kenji and Kensuke have been very much doing their own thing over the past decade to 2 decades, really. And Kenji very much coming from an even more grounded in Hong Kong style than Kensuke. Kensuke was kind of doing his own thing, and because the budgets were real low, he just had this incredible playground to play around with, literally no money, but play around a lot with the choreography and the action. And both of them independently kind of seemed to get to this point where they're starting to stack bodies. And this was like the pinnacle of basically building a pyramid in bodies and just climbing your way at the top of it, which was so beautifully executed. I think the kind of fight in The Furious that takes place inside the octagon is incredible, right? And kind of that's now the new big hammer scene. He's managed to supplant that and take it away from Old Boy in a pretty incredible
even just
way.
saying that a hammer in the octagon, like you have to think, and it didn't, because the hammer came a few times, but that is, I don't know, I never even thought of that, because it's so, you don't picture a UFC fight. Maybe you could have a stick, but a hammer, my God, that is brutal to be in the cage with. That is like,
and it worked so well. I think the last little
it did.
The last little wee mini history lesson that I'm going to give is our other big important factor in this, and it's Gmail, who our main actor incredibly charismatic and really, really watchable and likable on screen. So even though he's playing a character who can't speak in the film, he's still able to convey an awful lot through his
we didn't touch
interactions.
on that. Great little switch up on that. That's neat. That creates
he's beautiful in this film. It's one of my favorite performances that I've seen. He took a big break after kind of performing in a couple of movies with Jet Li when he was really young. Because I think he was still, like I said, he was only 9 when he did those movies, and he did 2. He did The New Legend of Shaolin. Is that the one, Shaun?
New Legend of Shaolin. Yeah.
Yeah, and he did My Father is a Hero, and then he basically, I think his parents were very concerned because there's a wonderful interview for anyone who wants to watch where Jet Li interviews Xiaomil on his own YouTube channel. And it's wonderful. It's beautiful because it's him just going back to the guy that played his dad all these years ago.
It's great. It's so good.
It's Jet Li celebrating this new work that he's done, which Jet Li's kind of now calling extreme kung fu, right? This is the term that Jet Li kind of came up with to describe it, which I don't hate, actually. It's pretty appropriate. But he stepped away from acting for quite a long time, then got pulled back in to do a TV series that was based around Shaolin, and then slowly started making movies again. And he has a couple of pretty big series, like multiple versions of the film, one called Fight Against Evil, the third of which is absolutely spectacular, but both 1 and 2 are pretty good as well. Made for Chinese streaming services, which are generally less heavily controlled than the stuff that goes into Chinese cinemas is. They can get away with a lot more. So the most interesting, most exciting choreography that's happening in the mainland is all happening in the sort of stuff that's been made for streaming over there. And he made 2 movies that are largely a tribute to the Zatoichi films where he's playing a blind swordsman called Eye for an Eye. There's 2 of those films that are both pretty incredible. But a lot of the choreography in Fight Against Evil 3 feels like I need to work out when it was made in relation to The Furious, because it feels very inspired by the choreography that he was doing in The Furious.
But there's that guy in mainland China right now who's doing all the choreography. He did Eye for an Eye, and I think he did the first 2 Fight Against Evil films. I can never remember his name. It begins with a Q, and I can't quite remember it. But he seems to be coming up alongside kind of Kenji and Kensuke, and he's a Chinese guy, and it's very similar. So I wonder if is it Chi Peng Fei? Is that his name? I think it might be Chi Peng Fei.
I think you might be right. One of us will pull it up in a wee second.
I'm about to try, but it's so interesting how these styles are kind of hand in hand with each other.
I see what you're saying, Shaun. You could see him coming in the mix. They could combine at some point in the future.
Yeah,
possibly.
I'm not sure who did Fight Against Evil 3 because I watched just the fight scenes from that like last week, and I couldn't believe how close to The Furious they were. I was just like, oh my god, these look really, really similar.
Shaun,
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I wanted to hear the end of when you and your wife were walking out, though, because we kind of went on some paths. What was your feeling and take at that moment? Because we as we said earlier, we've been radio silence with each other because we wanted to all let it go here.
Yes. So the good thing about my dear wife is that she isn't one to hold back when announcing how much she loves something when watching it. So I heard her throughout the film, oh my god. Well, she hated the hammer bit because it was so gruesome. Oh, yeah. She loved the fight choreography, but she couldn't handle the broken limbs and all that. So I knew that she'd liked it by the end of it. And obviously I was in love by the end. I was in a haze of just that was too good. My mind was literally blown. So when we finally got out the cinema, I turned to her and I was just like, so what do you think? And yeah, that's when she kind of turned to me and she was like, yeah, that was amazing. She loved it. And I think so. I've watched a lot of martial arts films with my wife over the years, and let's say I've watched 500 films with her. There's probably 2 that she will watch with me over and over again. I think The Furious might be another one. So I think she might actually agree to watch this one as we go forward. But yeah, I don't know. I just loved everything about it. And she loved everything about it. So we were very happy. And I was going to talk about a little tidbit actually that I think I read online that Kensuke Sonomura shot and choreographed Hydra in 6 days. And on this film, The Furious, he had 18 days for just the final fight scene. So previously, he just done an entire film in 6 days, and he was given the biggest playground to play with. this time around, and it worked. That's why it's so
It
polished.
shows.
It's
Yeah.
incredible. And these things are so rehearsed. I mean, I think that they spent months working out the choreography in advance. Everything's heavily prevised. Nothing is left to chance. So there's not a huge amount of, because that is quite separate to the way that Hong Kong used to operate, where stuff was kind of largely kind of being refined and come up with on the day. This was not that, and I don't think much of Kensuke Sonomura's work is. I think the Japanese, for the most part, in almost all the action they do is very heavily controlled and previs, so they kind of work it all out in advance. I think I've got the name. So the different choreographers for Eye for an Eye and Fight Against Evil. Fight Against Evil was Zhang Yang Li, who I think has done stunt work on Extraction 2 and has mostly been doing a sort of assistant stunt coordinators. I think one of his first big titles was Fight Against Evil 3, but it was indeed made after The Furious. So I think it's definitely kind of been inspired by the stuff that he's been doing on that movie. But yeah, just absolutely incredible, really. I think it's made me appreciate the route that both guys have gone through. It also makes me really want us to sit down and do Twilight of the Warriors, because I think, Jason, you need to get into another movie that's had Kenji doing an awful lot of it. My other little fact, because I have seen loads and loads of people comparing this to The Raid, and some people comparing it to John Wick as well, which makes no sense to me.
What?
Yeah, I didn't get that. I didn't get that.
There are a few kind of quite high-profile reviews being like, "This is just the next in the John Wick universe chapter," and it's like, what? But
boy, these reviews are.
Yeah,
like what Shaun's saying, like his think pieces sound like they're trying to like decipher if it's high art, and it's like, well, wait, we're not.
I think it's a lowbrow comparison to make. I think it's just trying to basically say to people, I think it's coming from a place of relatively good intentions, where it's just trying to say, okay, if you enjoyed the John Wick movies, which a lot of people did, then you'll enjoy this, which I can kind of understand. People
that's fair, especially if someone rarely ever sees a martial arts movie, for instance, and John Wick was their own experience. This could give a similar feeling, but I think way more. John Wick gets a little bit where you don't grimace as much. You know what I mean? Something with John Wick becomes a little like cartoony, that it's not like
it's stylized. It's like
but I just mean
stylized.
It's not that it lacks realism. It's just I don't remember any moments where I've had in The Night Comes for Us or this where you're like, oh, just some of the like stabs and stuff. It's just this has a little more of a horror leaning in it.
Yeah, and also I think it's a lot more carefully controlled, where I think the John Wick stuff, by the time they get to John Wick 3 and 4, especially in 4, they aren't spending that long working out the choreography. So that they're basically, I think Chad Stahelski has spoken a couple of times that he likes the John Wick character to always feel a little bit out of his depth. So he basically kind of wants to give him the moves on the day, because he doesn't want him to be too in his mind, he doesn't want it to look too choreographed. But I think he maybe needs to slightly revise that thought, where particularly with a guy of Keanu's age, I think it would be much more beneficial to actually give him something a lot more structured, because it would feel more spontaneous. Because when I look at the stuff in John Wick 4 is not my favorite of the 4 movies. I much prefer 3. And I think a lot of that's to do with the other elements they bring in and some of the supporting actors they bring in. One of whom we saw in The Furious. So Yayan was in John Wick 3 as kind of one of Mark Dacascos's 2 sushi chefs, and it's been a while since he's had a chance to shine as well as he does in The Furious. He's incredible in this movie, and the bow and arrow was a really beautiful addition too, something that I've never seen used in an action movie at all. I don't think ever. And I like the little Throne of Blood tribute with the cowboy trafficker guy like pinned to the van by like more arrows than he could conceivably ever have had in that quiver. You know, there was like. It was just but that to me was a little Kurosawa moment. That was them doing Throne of Blood.
Wasn't Yayan wearing a Bruce Lee tracksuit, like the one that Bruce Lee wore in? Is it Long Street?
It might well have been the red Adidas suit. The
red with the white. I think that that's the only Easter egg I spotted personally. I thought that was the one that was just like, oh, that's an homage to Bruce Lee. I could be wrong though.
Now that you said that, Dragon, I was going to say. Now that you said that, I'm going to do like a quick plug for you guys. So if you want to see Mark Dacascos, he was on Dragon's channel with a great interview. And
first interview I ever did, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so you could check out that on there. And on Shaun's Food for Thought channel, he had the Martial Club on with Brian Lee. What was that, like a year and a half ago or something like that?
Yeah, around the time of their film, which around a year and a half, I would say.
Yeah, just as when I heard Mark, and then I just thought, oh, I want to, like, you guys got some cool interviews with a lot of these players.
I also interviewed Kenji Tanigaki. I interviewed the movie's director. That I was desperate to try and interview him again for this, but he's beyond busy just now. I mean, he's doing press for this movie while at the same time doing the choreography for the
Was that the one with Frank Jang? I can't remember, or was that a different one?
Kenji is just me and Kenji, and it was just before he just finished Twilight of the Warriors, and it was in pre-production. So it was kind of more just, it was the first chance to chat with him. So it was more like speaking about everything that got him up to the point of just getting ready to do Twilight of the Warriors. And he's back doing the sequel for that. And we've also had news, we should say, that The Furious is getting a sequel itself. Furious 2 is looking like it's going to go ahead if it does good numbers. And I certainly hope that it will. I think it's going to maybe do slightly better on streaming and on physical media than it's getting the chance to do in theaters, because it's not getting enough chances to be screened, sadly.
I have to say, for some odd reason, and I want to hear Dragon, like you've said your opinions, and I want to kind of hear the end of or how it hit you in the theater. I want to get a little more on your reaction, but for some reason, when I hear there's going to be a sequel to Furious 2, I don't know why that didn't it didn't excite me really for some reason. I feel like they should take these directors and people and do like another singular thing.
Kenji is doing a remake of The Man from Nowhere first.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did hear that. Yeah, I guess it's the ending. The ending of this had such a finality to it. It like something with them putting the ashes and everything. And I know, there's a survivor, which is, we got to talk about how he survived. I mean, I thought he was dead as a doornail, on Jay and that. And I just, I don't know, something about when I heard The Furious 2, it just was like, maybe try something different with the same actor and director and combo. But I'm sure once it comes out, it might hit like the Raid 2. I'll love it and everything. It's just something when I heard that, it just was like, some of these movies were in a lot of the main, like the beauty of it was maybe we could have Taslim and him come back in a different scenario, but we can't do that in The Furious 2. Like maybe the two of them I thought had a great chemistry. So
yeah, someone mentioned doing a prequel film that covers 𝘍𝘶𝘃𝘴's kind of like a backstory, because we don't find out what his backstory is. So
that would be really cool. That would work.
Yeah, I heard some rumblings online of people just going, "Yeah, that would be a great idea." So,
well, they can't do the kidnap thing again, and I think the one that I thought of the most when I was watching the film, not in relation to the action, but in relation to the story, was Kenji did the action direction on a Chinese movie called Fierce Cop a year or two ago. I think it's from 2022, I think, or maybe 2023. That's about a police officer who's been played by Richie Ren, who's takes down the son of this guy who's running a human trafficking organization, and the son's like an adult male, so he's like he encounters him in a nightclub and ends up sort of arresting him at that sort of point. So this guy's like in his early 20s. And is thrown into jail. And as retribution for the fact that his son's been put in jail, the head of this trafficking gang kidnaps the policeman's very young child, his son, right? And then the whole movie is him fighting his way to try and get back his kid, which is very similar to The Furious. That's kind of where the similarities end. There is some incredible action in it. And I kind of got the sense that I wondered if it had been made after. This is a tiny little spoiler, Jason, for something in Twilight of the Warriors, but you'll be good. Don't worry.
Should I do a bathroom break? I could.
You're okay. So Richie Ren's character, who's not a huge part of Twilight of the Warriors, but he spends probably the last third of that movie locked up in a cage. That's all I'm going to say. And I kind of got the sense that Richie Ren was like, I need to do something more action based. So Richie Ren basically is getting to do a bunch of very Kenji style action really well, actually, in Fierce Cop. And it's not a great movie, but it's a very entertaining movie. And a lot of the stuff that I think Kenji expanded and evolved in The Furious, I saw little similarities to some of the choreography. So I kind of feel that The Furious is like a melding of both guys together, where I don't think it's the case as when Kensuke made the Baby Assassins movies, all the action is being handled by Kensuke, because the main director is not really an action filmmaker. He's more interested in writing stories. And this time around, this didn't just feel entirely like Kensuke. This felt very much like a marriage of the two, because there was an awful lot more of an influence from the Hong Kong and mainland China style, particularly through what 𝘍𝘶𝘃𝘴 is doing, because he's he's using. Everyone had such different styles, right? So Joe Taslim got to do more judo than we've seen him do in a movie thus far. He really got to lean into his specialty. And I kind of feel that a lot of the moves that Kensuke had used for Brian Lee had come from him watching Brian Lee's Instagram reels and be like, "Oh,
Definitely.
you can do that. You can turn yourself into like a human cannonball and like launch yourself head first and things." We'll definitely use that. And we should take a minute. He is a spiritual successor to Sammo Hung in the big guy who can still do acrobatic shit. And incredible, really, some of the ways that they played with that. So people either being thrown out of the way, the amount of walking on hands that these guys were doing into like other flips back and forward to get out of the way of different fights. Like there's so much that, like Shaun says, it's going to take a long time to rewatch this and break down exactly what's going on, because because
when you're blown away by one move, there's two that happen. Like when you were kind of like mine was, and I wanted to say on that what you were saying about Sammo and that what it strikes me as is the reason that you could be of that size and do it is because, like, when you've read Jackie Chan's autobiography and everything, when you start that young, do you know, like a lot of, now that's something I could ask Shaun. I can't remember from your interview if you guys touched on it. Like, was Brian Lee doing this since he was like 6? Because that's the vibe I'm getting. Like, you know how, like if we all went to learn gymnastics right now, we're going to have a tough time with it, you know? But when you start from your 6, you could get to different sizes. You have it so ingrained that it's just a lot easier from you versus if you were of a certain size and then had to learn it. You know, it's like the moves are so ingrained in him. And this is something that just radiated, it seems so second nature. And his Instagram stuff was incredible, and it just neat. He really just came into his own on this. I didn't get to see, and you said it's only a very, very bit thing in the Michelle Yeoh movie that won all those awards. I know they had and it's probably great, but this is like, he just felt like the centerpiece in a weird way because the villain was so larger than life. And when he came back, it was just so memorable, and it almost it's different to how he seems in the interviews. In the interviews, like, you know, there's times you'll see a villain, you're like, oh my God, he's like, hey, on the red carpet. It's like, that's the same guy. This is like, he's like, hey, yeah, I had a great time. We had 2 weeks. It's like, and in there, he just seems like a possessed. I don't even remember much dialogue. I guess they were trying to talk about, they did like a thing where they were implying he had a lot of like brain injury, CTE. They brought that up a little bit, and it's obvious. And that kind of explained, even in this fantasy world of getting run over by a truck 10 times, he came back. He would be the only one that could come back after that hit. And,
but Kenji's smart. Kenji's smart because if you watch some of Brian Lee's stuff online, often he's the one that kind of has the silliness cranked up. He's kind of in the Martial Club short films. He's kind of the sillier, kind of more cartoony one. And Kenji must have just taken that and gone, let's just dial it in slightly. And it works perfectly. Like he just brings it in a little bit, and he's still a bit silly and a bit strange and a bit of an oddball, but it just works so well. So, like, respect to Kenji for being able to see that and being able to like form it into a proper character that works. And like you said, Jason, he's one of the standouts in the film.
Oh, man.
Yeah, works well.
Dragon, but you being in the theater, take us back, because I want to hear, like, kind of rounding out. You gave us an awesome history of how it led up to the moves, but putting the people that are drunk and laughing aside as much, I think you need to definitely see this again, obviously. But how did it ramp up? And I know we love Yayan. And, you know, of course, in the Raid 2, I think your like favorite, he's a little more of not as a main star as he is in that. So I want to hear how it all fell together.
Real nasty villain for him to do. No, I absolutely loved it. I think I consciously didn't walk. I've been dodging, like, almost like Neo dodging bullets anytime that a clip came up. Like I saw the very first teaser trailer, which is just a tiny little short glimpse of the kidnapping. And you see him chasing after the van. You see maybe like one or two of the moves beside the van. That's all I'd seen. And so I consciously hadn't watched, because behind the scenes things kept coming up of them doing the previs. Like scrolling past those, like my life depended on it. So I'm very happy that a lot of it I was seeing for the first time on the big screen. And so I hadn't seen the little sequence of the first time that Taslim and Shaun go up against each other. So all of that was like super fresh to me the first time, and was pretty blown away. I felt the only person that maybe didn't get as much time to shine as I would have liked was Taslim. And I thought he got to do a lot of the more heavy lifting in terms of the dramatic acting side of things. Like that little, his last moments reaching out for the ring broke my fucking heart. It was like so sweet. And I really did kind of hope, I was fantasizing as the movie was going on of like, after they got the kid relatively early, my mind didn't go to the way that it played out at the police station, where they went literally full Terminator of like, it's pretty ballsy for two guys to just turn up and start killing everyone in the police station.
Oh man!
I kind of, in my mind, I was like, maybe the wife would still be alive, and the last act would be like a rescue mission where the kid would be safe and protected, and then our two heroes would go off to try and get the wife back. So I was quite happy that ended up not happening in a way, because it subverted where I thought it was going to go, but a little bit disappointed because I kind of thought that 𝘍𝘶 was going to get to that last act was going to be basically 𝘍𝘶 going out to kind of get his missing person back too, right? But I loved the fact that it went in a different way, and I thought the police station was a really very kind of ballsy, really wonderfully done, almost horror movie-esque, Terminator-esque way of just these two guys who absolutely no fucks to give at that point, turning up and then just decimating everybody in there. So I thought that each of the main action set pieces, the first initial one really in and around the octagon, when he actually kind of first sees the guy with the afro, and that's sort of his point of contact to try and find out a little bit more about the kidnappers, and him meeting 𝘍𝘶, through to all the stuff that happened in the snake pit when they went to rescue the kid, and then going back in again in the snake pit with the motorbike and the girl in the back smashing in. That was just absolutely incredible. So one of my favorite beats, and that kid was great. And I think I'm sure that it would have been very helpful for the kid to be working with somebody who is probably that age himself when he was doing stuff with Jet Li, and I think it was a really tough shoot for him, from what I understand, working on My Father the Hero. And from his recollections are, she said, like, there's scenes when he says he watches himself and you can see himself from the back in My Father the Hero, and he can tell that he's crying because his shoulders are going up, and he sort of remembers back to how cold he was and how hard it was. So I'm sure it was real good for her as a child actor in this thing, coming into a scene that's must have been pretty daunting, like as a young girl, to be surrounded by that many stunt performers and having to basically like hold your own. I thought she was great. So I really loved the motorbike beat. I thought it was kind of real nice, and that kind of whole fight up the building, and then that just worked really nicely. I think the first sequence and the last sequence are probably the two strongest ones for me. So the initial sequence in and around the octagon, and the end sequence in the police station were pitch perfect, really. And it's really difficult to have 5 people fighting independently and it not just turn into a clusterfuck or a mess. And it never did. And they were constantly kind of finding new and interesting stuff. Everything about what they did with the arrow, sorry, not with the arrow, with the ladder, was
I forgot to mention that.
And I'm sure somewhere like First Strike era Jackie Chan's going like, why didn't I think to run up? Because I'd never seen like that. That was spectacular, like with kind of using the ladder and they can run it up to kind of flip off.
But also an example of, if you don't do that just perfect, it just seems like the guy's helping them fully. You have to do it. They just nailed it. And it wasn't just the camera angle. The guy was able to make it seem like he wasn't just holding it in a way.
And
the acting through action.
That is probably the Kenji of it all, because I'm sure like he would have probably had to be on wires for that to kind of get the height. And there's a couple of points where he does some really pretty crazy high, like he does a high sort of really high kick and then brings the kick down almost from the top. So I'm sure there was quite a bit of wire work going on there, and that's certainly something that Kenji knows inside out and back to front. So and it's something that I haven't seen Kensuke doing a huge amount of wire work in the stuff that he's done today. I just don't think he's had those sorts of budgets or that size of crew to be able to make those sort of things happen. So I thought it was this incredible marriage of these two guys who I absolutely adore. Like I think they're the two choreographers that I'm probably the most excited about, the two action directors, or just directors, because they both have done it all at this point. Like both of them have been feature film directors, both of them have been action directors. So there's this incredible, it's just a perfect alignment of the planets. Like two guys who've come from the same grounding, who've had very similar careers, but with very different interpretations based on what the type of work they've been doing. To have them both together in one movie was super special for me. And then the cast that they've assembled around them couldn't have been more perfect. I think it'd be really interesting to see what happens in the Furious 2, because a lot of the people didn't survive to come back for the next one. But I'm quietly confident that they'll do something pretty unreal. And so, yeah, for me, I was just absolutely blown away by it. I don't think I'm going to see another film that's going to top it this year, and I think it's the action movie that I've enjoyed the most since The Night Comes for Us, and to a different extent, The Shadow Strays. I love The Shadow Strays, but the action that's in The Shadow Strays is incredible, but there's not quite as much of it as we got in The Furious.
So I've noticed something when you guys say all this, and I'm excited for doing Twilight coming, but you guys don't seem to mention that up in this
It's a
upper
different sort of
echelon.
thing. I think
Okay.
the dramatic elements in Twilight are, I think, probably better handled. The acting performances, you feel there's a different wave of different emotions that you kind of feel throughout that film because of what the characters are kind of going through, and there's
More drama, it sounds like.
Well, it's just a very different story. But yes, yeah, that's probably a succinct way of saying it. There's more dramatic elements, and they spend more time with them in Twilight the Warriors in a way that's really rewarding, ultimately, for that character's story, right? Whereas this was a much more, you could write the plot for this, and we saw that plot on IMDb. You can reduce it down to one line that still makes sense, right? It is, and I've seen some people comparing it to Taken in that regard, which is frustrating, but I can sort of understand. Like, it's a kidnapping story and somebody with a special set of skills going after to try and get their kid back. So yeah, I kind of get it, but I don't think they're the same sort of animal. I think this is built on a legacy of pure, unadulterated, unabashed love for martial arts cinema, and trying to make a movie for fans of basically not just action cinema, but specifically of martial arts cinema. And in that regard, The Furious excelled. And I don't think we're going to see anything else come close to it for a while.
Yeah, the bar that it's set, it's just incredible. I mean, I had a question when you talk about the building. So we have this corrupt cop who we know, we find out he's doing all that, and he's still trying to he didn't seem to care really, but he was still trying to keep it under wraps. The moment where they let that gang come through, was that him just saying, well, I'm going to get killed if I don't do this? So it just seemed like it was strange because he was trying to enforce his seniority and tell them, no, you do this and everything. But wasn't it just completely obvious to all these families, everything that the gang was? I couldn't quite understand. Did the families on the street think that gang was going to help, or did they know that this corrupt cop was it all figured out in that moment? Okay.
Yeah.
It was just strange because
it was just like, hey, I'm corrupt.
And don't interrupt this because we got to kill. It was all out in the open. I thought maybe those families down there screaming, do something, was thinking that, that the gang were going to maybe go up and also help, but they look so menacing. I'm sure they knew this was guys that were bad, right? The families and everything.
Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
It was just a little strange that he let them go up out in the open like that. The police officer, he just.
Yeah, it was strange. It felt very like Hong Kong martial arts cinema.
I wouldn't overthink it too
much. Like kind of that cheese.
I think that the takeaway for that scene, or the intent for that scene, was just more, holy fuck, there's a whole bunch of extra guys and they're all huge. I think that was
exactly.
I had my pod hat on, trying to think, okay, this cop's still just, and he was so intimidated. And shout out to, who's the actress? Is it 𝘍𝘶𝘳𝘪? No, it's not 𝘍𝘶𝘳𝘪. Yeah, she was great. She really had a presence, a really good presence, kind of like a. Well, okay, no, I'm sorry. I meant who's the actress that played the female police officer that survived?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Okay,
sure who she was.
I thought she was really good. Like in the 90s, I could see Michelle Yeoh being in that, but of course they'd have Michelle Yeoh doing more action, but just kind of like.
Yeah, I think that might be the girl with incredibly long tie name. That might be.
Yeah, that was when I was when I did know you got to see that on paper, Shaun. I tried to look. I said, okay, I got to practice a few of these if we're even going to get it out of my mouth.
Okay, let's give it a try. Let's give it a try because the character is called Andong, basically the female police sergeant. But I think the actress is Manat Sanun Phenladwang-Sakul. Is the best that I can try. My tie is not.
Hey, good. You risked it. You went for it. Good for you, dude.
I'll be honest. It looks a lot worse on paper. That sounded like kind of succinct, but this thing was like 2 sentences almost. But yeah, I was nervous to say that one. But I thought she was great.
She didn't get a huge amount of chance to do that much action. But I thought it was nice that they gave her the other cop who I'm not seeing his name in the cast list, the guy who I think, Jason, you felt like some of his overdubbing was a bit clunky, but I like that they gave him a couple of minutes or a couple of heroic moments of grabbing and trying to stop.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then getting his
oh
arm
my
chopped
gosh.
off.
And that's where the horror came up. That was bad. But if that wasn't enough, his death, if I recall, because you felt bad for him, you knew he didn't have like the oomph of her to be able to do much, but he had the heart to do it. But when they didn't let him out easy, that killing, I think it was Yayan that took him out with a knife or something. It was
and chopped his hand off and then walked away with his hand still attached to his leg. That was one of the times when I was like, okay, this is a moment where everyone's expected to laugh, right?
And let me guess, they were all serious, and then they probably laughed.
They did laugh at that moment. But I think there was one that I felt a real degree of vindication on was like when Joey first busts out in the office after he realizes like, fuck it, like the only way I'm going to get through this is just killing everybody in the room. When he turns and stabs through the stomach of his own wife who's pregnant, they'd been laughing at every beat up until that moment, and at that stage they were all like. There was a genuine silence. And I was like,
that was
motherfuckers. That was meant to be your reaction to 90% of this movie.
It's like you've been this boily brat the whole time, now you're going to feel like his. And so in the theater like that, your wife really enjoyed it as well? Was she able to look past the guys?
It. So she did put out a couple of, she doesn't normally put out that much stuff on social media, but she put out a couple of posts and Instagram stories about how much she fucking hated that particular cinema.
And this is the one you guys had an issue with, like on some other movie when their cell phones.
Everything.
They were.
No, different cinema for that one. This one was where we saw like Get Out, and we've I can't remember if we saw Fist of Fury there too. I went to see, the last thing I'd seen before this was Tornado, and thankfully that had a much more receptive audience. So the Tornado screening was actually fine, but
I still want to see that.
This time, Tornado's great. But I think overall, just even with all the niggles and complaints I have about my other co-audience members, it wasn't enough to diminish the magnificence of this. I thought that everyone involved just did an incredible job, and I think that it's, in some ways, it's maybe not the worst thing in the world that it's not going to have as much opportunities to be seen by that many people on the big screen, because I think it's going to firmly cement it into like cult film status, and it's just going to grow and grow and grow.
I hope its fire burns long. I hope this isn't a film that's just like forgotten about. I
don't think so. I think the people that matter more, there's been a really nice little offshoot, unexpected side effect in that a lot of people who've seen this have now gone and discovered The Night Comes for Us for the first time, and partly helped by Timo. Timo's done better marketing for this movie than Lionsgate has. Like he's been all over it relentlessly, like posted.
But he has no. It's just his peers. He has no like. It had nothing to do with this, though, right?
No, but his his brother in arms, so Taslim, was in The Night Comes for Us for him, and
of course,
and all that. I think he's just real proud to see someone that he's friends with doing well, and so I think also it's nice that the people connected to the Furious have been throwing love back towards The Night Comes for Us, and I think.
Well, you know what? That's going to be me. I need to give another chance because. Like it was weird on that podcast when Shaun explained that of how like you're going to see just what the killing move's going to be, because that was my main irk. I couldn't figure out why they're life bars, and I saw a reviewer for The Furious described it as a video game. The life bar goes out and the other life bar arrives. That's a good way to describe, because these guys have. But in the Night Comes for Us, it was something felt. Okay, here's what I think it is. In this, once the violence came and you get that, there was at least a moment where the stab through the heart, that's going to be it. Or when the cuts came in, it kind of took them out. The Night Comes for Us, I just recall like kind of like so much slashing and so much that seemed a little odd. Because if you don't have, like I mentioned earlier, the Michael Myers, they brought a supernatural, or they brought that, I believe, of course, in the Jason Voorhees too a bit. If you don't bring that element, it just is like, wait, I can't follow why these guys can be chopped to like mincemeat and they're still hanging on,
I think The Night Comes for Us to me is much more of a spiritual successor to The Raid and The Raid 2, because that's a continuation of Indonesian action cinema. But it's basically the baton being put down by Gareth Evans returning back to the UK and no longer being there to continue to make those sorts of movies over there, and the baton being picked up by somebody else. So the baton being picked up by Timo, but then still giving work to all the guys who did work on The Raid and The Raid 2. So a lot of the stunt crew that were working on The Night Comes for Us have come directly from the Raid movies. But Timo came from a horror background, so his earlier movies are all straight up pure horror movies. And so that's where he doesn't even think of the stuff that he does as being particularly violent. Like he doesn't think that, he kind of thinks that violence in real life is much, much worse. He thinks what he does is kind of basically more akin to kind of like like
slasher
a
movie or
ballistic
something.
A little bit, yeah. And but
That sums it up for me then. That helps though me understand it, because I was coming from the martial arts viewing, and then that's what was throwing me a tad.
Whereas I think the Furious is more of a evolution of SPL and Flashpoint and Raging Fire and to a certain extent Twilight of the Warriors mixed in with Baby Assassins and Hydra, and so it's like this wonderful meld of like Hong Kong and Japanese action, whereas Indonesian stuff feels very different. But even though we have Indonesian actors in this, like nobody's doing Penkat Silat. It's not leaning into it. It's a tiny little bit at the end where Yayan's got his sort of kukri. It looks more like it's not one of those traditional Indonesian knives. It looked more like the knives that the Gurkhas have. It was like one of those curved, but like a really big kukri. So maybe kukri meets a machete. And there was little bits of some of what he was doing there that felt a little bit like his choreography. So he's probably been allowed to kind of use his own sort of technique. And Taslim, I felt, was really, really leaning into judo. Where in the previous stuff that he did, he was doing, there was more of a frenzied choreography to the stuff that he did in The Night Comes For Us. So I kind of feel like it's
a lot more guns in that too. Way more guns in that one.
Yeah.
And therefore that's the other thing too that was throwing me. Like whenever, I believe, was it Taslim that gets killed, where all those guys are shooting at him in the car in The Night Comes For Us in that underground garage.
No,
he doesn't die at that moment, but that is him.
Oh, okay.
No. Isn't that the guy with the beard? That's like Ben, the guy who's the sort of uncle who's looking after the kid while Taslim's away.
Yeah.
Oh, Taslim's at the very end. Taslim's at the very end
on the pier, not the pier, but where the ship's dock.
That underground one where they like he was just moving in the car and dodging. That also threw me, but I think I'm gonna have a much better time with that now, because it's like the interventions I can go back, and this just helped so much with. It didn't feel too unrealistic because you're in this universe, you understand the parameters of it, and like, okay, these guys can come back, and at least they had a moment. You could feel what would actually finally finish it off.
I wonder how you now. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I felt that Furious was generally a lot more grounded, where if someone was getting smashed really hard in the head with a hammer, with the exception of Brian Lee, who was the Terminator, so he was always going to get back up. But the other guys, they weren't getting back up again, and there was big chunks coming out their heads.
Oh, yeah.
They were down, right, and a lot of leg and arm breaks.
And shout out to that steel toe kick. I forgot that too. That was another moment. That was the first kick that put me on, because they had multiple high points. Like I said, the storyboards and how I could see just the characters, the placement, so great when they introduced them, the shots of Yayan from behind with the bow, and they'd slow down those moments. But that steel toe, I don't know what it was. The audience kind of all went off that move, that kick. It just was like, oh, we're in it now. And I did love 𝘍𝘶𝘳𝘪𝘰𝘶𝘴. Her first fight scene was great. It was really unique because it made me go, I'm not going, oh, that's Taekwondo. It was this strange, like really cool new style. There's such a mix. But when it got to that kick, just set the tone in that nightclub. And it also reminded me of the Raid 2 with Yayan, the nightclub vibe.
Just before you move too far on from 𝘍𝘶𝘳𝘪𝘰𝘶𝑴's fight at the very, very beginning, there's a moment where the two guys that she's fighting against basically help her get into a full split, but it did not feel at all like that's what was happening.
Yeah,
two guys trying to grab her and her trying her best to get away from the situation, and then getting herself up into a full split, which just looked unreal. And she did the two bounces off the floor where she like swept round between, like swept from one guy's legs round to the other guy and then round again, which I'm sure they probably did a wire assisted pull on to help her. We did
that in jiu-jitsu in warm-ups. Two people would stand there just with their legs, and the other person would go in and out, grab a leg, you swing around, go to the other person. It's like a pretty brutal warm-up, but hers was, I mean, who knows? That's how seamless it was, Shaun, what was the movie you thought maybe me going back to?
No, I was going to say, I'll be really interested in what you think of the Shadow Strays now. After watching the Indonesian films and watching The Furious, I'm interested to see how maybe your opinions may reshape as you kind of go through these films. So yeah, I'm interested to see. When we finally do that, it'll be an interesting one for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Should we bring it home, gentlemen? Anybody else have any last thoughts?
I'll say one little thing I wanted to add. When you were talking about how, so when I looked at what it was playing, I saw it was Friday to Wednesday. And I was like, okay, is that the end? Is it just a little 5 day run? Because sometimes when I'd go see like the Oasis documentary, they need to put it in the theater just for one day. So it has a chance of an Academy Award, because the director of that won an Academy Award for the Amy Winehouse documentary. So you need to have it in the theater to be eligible. This, I was like, is this just like a 5-day run? But then once I got the Wednesday, because I was thinking of going and seeing it again, but I actually kind of wanted to absorb it. I wanted to let this one simmer for a while before I went back. But I saw it was going like another 5 days. So it's like, okay, cool. But I did want to touch on you saying it remaining in cult status. I think that is good in a way, because me being down, all of us, but me being at every Jackie Chan movie when I saw that Break America, it was amazing. But when I saw it get to Rush Hour and what they start doing to Jet Li off the back of it, when it gets commercialized, when it does get to the mainstream, it doesn't always go where you want it to go. You know what I mean? Like suddenly we have Jet Li and DMX and all these things. Like I believe if this just does amazing for the martial arts fans community, I feel that's great. And it obviously is. It doesn't need to be like 300 million at the box office, because then what's going to really, sometimes when that money comes involved in the American studios, as much as I want to see like a renaissance and I feel it's happening, I just don't know if it needs to get to like, him being with whatever rapper of the day is or something going on.
No, I don't think that'll happen. I think, Kenji's a particularly switched on and sharp dude, and there's a wealth of opportunities for him in mainland China, Hong Kong, and Japan. He's definitely got an eye towards trying to make stuff for the international market, but he's also been really burnt by the times when he has tried to embrace Hollywood. He did the choreography for the Snake Eyes movie, and the previs for that looks incredible, and the final movie is awful. Like
you guys said with Taslim's in it, right? Yeah, Taslim. Barely.
No, not Taslim.
No, it's Andrew Koji that's kind of in that, and Iko Uwais is briefly in it, but
that's what it was. One of the guys in the raid, when I was just learning it, you guys mentioned he was in Snake Eyes like briefly.
Yeah, and that movie is really disappointing in terms of how they've largely edited the action and cut it to shreds, and I think a lot of what his intentions were never got realized. So I don't think that Hollywood's going to come courting him in a way. I think the Man from Nowhere movie's hopefully going to have a decent budget, and I haven't completely confirmed it yet, but I think he's going to be doing action direction on the spin-off John Wick movie, Kane and Donnie Yen.
Really?
Because there's posts on his Instagram when he was visiting Budapest, which is where I think they're filming the movie. And it's weird for him, unless he was just randomly paying Donnie a visit, but it kind of felt like they were location scouting. He's back now working on the sequel to Twilight of the Warrior, so he's been logging horrible amounts of emails.
He's a busy man.
Yeah, because I desperately tried to see if I could kind of get him back onto the channel to speak about the Furious, but so far, no joy. Hopefully, maybe when things calm down after he finishes with Twilight of the Warriors, we can maybe get him on for around the time that we cover Twilight here, because we absolutely have to do Twilight of the Warriors for the. Yeah,
I actually think that might be. For the next intervention, it might be a neat little sidestep, maybe.
Maybe that or the Shadow Strays would both be very.
What's up? You guys discussed behind the scene, how you're gonna guide me. But Shaun, what were you had a last thought there, kind of wrapping it up? You were gonna say.
I think the only last thought I'd say is that I kind of let myself down in that early on in this podcast. I don't think I stressed how much I love this film. Like I was just like, oh yeah, it's amazing. It's one of the best. But like to me, this is a special film. This is a special landmark film. It won't be long before we have our next John Wick spin-off, and they're trying to rip off this style of choreography. And I think this film will go on to bleed into popular culture. And I think, while I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, I do like that the film has that kind of stamp on cinema. And it blew my mind. I cannot wait to watch this again. I will definitely buy it digitally when it comes out, and I will probably buy the 4K when it comes out as well. I'm eager to see it again, because it's not showing here now. It's gone.
I was just about to say, if there's a wee chance if you and your wife could just get down to the last night, because I mean, Dragons shows the dark side of having a packed theater, but I didn't even say how much those hammer hits, the reactions, the spilling into the lobby, even when you have to go to the bathroom, you know, that vibe when everyone's like, oh my God, I couldn't believe he came back at that point. This was like the old school. This reminded me of when I saw Rumble in the Bronx in 96 or 95, 96.
Yeah.
It, you know, just like when you're watching a Kung Fu movie when you're little, you and your cousin fight in the yard or whatever, you're just doing everything. We were doing that in the parking lot, and other people were doing it too. That felt like, and this had that vibe again. And that's just kind of what I was just saying there. I'm just kind of happy it wasn't a runaway hit where, we're going to, and that'd be good. Yeah. But I'm happy it just was amazing in its own sphere still. It wasn't like it didn't go up to $300 million amazingly or something. And
right. Do we know the budget on this? Does anyone have the budget?
20 million.
Oh, US. It's made 31 million so far.
Well, that's good.
So
and I just want to say, I wanted to do amazing. I just mean sometimes when something blows up, then it just gets, when the studios get their hands on it. And like you said, Dragon, Kenji would stick to his guns and stuff. But what I saw happen in the late 90s, it got into a weird moment. That's also where I stopped watching for a little bit with all those Cradle of the Graves and stuff, you know, and that it just kind of like, and then Crouching Tiger really pulled me back in. When I saw Crouching Tiger in the theater,
I'm not too worried about what's going to happen from the American side, because at this point there's not. I mean, Lionsgate are kind of really the only place out of the big studios that's still continuing to even entertain looking at movies like this. Like there's more chance or more likelihood that the other subset factions of Disney in other countries will do interesting shit off the back of this.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
probably the South Koreans. I think if it influences anywhere positively, that would be where I'd be looking to kind of see, because it's already got the brutality that their choreography is also pretty interested in, the emotional brutality that's pretty frequent in kind of Korean choreography. And it'll be interesting to kind of see if any of it filters down into some of the kind of web-based series that are coming out of there, because South Korean cinemas, that's a whole other different conversation. They're having a hard time just now. But, I would say that if people are desperate for more Kensuke, and you have an HBO Max subscription, track down the series that's currently streaming there called Song of the Samurai, which Kensuke did all the action direction for, which is not as well, actually, there's a few pretty good group fights in it. Some of the choreography in that is absolutely exceptional. The underlying storyline's not always as entertaining, where there's a couple of filler episodes, but when they do get down to doing action, the action there is pretty spectacular. And it feels like Kensuke doing Rurouni Kenshin era Kenji with his own spin on it, because there's a lot of sword kind of based stuff going on in Song of the Samurai. And that's a great little series. I think it's almost finished its first season. It's been renewed for a second, I think. That's on HBO
I didn't even
Max
know about it.
It's real good fun, and it's really kind of nice seeing Kensuke. Anytime that Kensuke has a little bit of a budget, and that the set design in that, the costumes and the locations that they've been able to go to, just it's a beautiful looking show. And the action, it's really, really entertaining. It's if you can imagine the choreography that you saw in The Furious, but both people have got samurai swords in their hands, then
Duel of the Death meets a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, but kind of, very, very cool.
Brian Lee question, just as we're wrapping it up here. I saw Preserved Dragons. You know his page, right, Shaun, on Instagram?
Yes, I think.
He does a lot of cool artwork and stuff. And he posed that he thought Brian Lee's character, I saw it say Ho and HD. I wasn't sure what the name was on his character, but I saw that he was saying he thought it was very, very influenced by Leatherface, and he put up the Hammer picture with Leatherface. I didn't get that while watching it. I don't know. Maybe, who knows if it was any.
I didn't, but it's open to interpretation, I suppose.
My favorite weapon that he used was actually the piece of scaffolding with a massive bit of concrete at the end. He brought out still in the truck at the beginning.
Oh yeah,
cool stuff. Okay, gentlemen, I think we are furioused out for the time being. For those that have got with us to the end, thank you very, very much for listening. This one's been an absolute blast, and forgive us for taking a departure away from our dive back into the history books and kind of going back to vintage kung fu with our occasional interventions and covering something more current. But we couldn't not, right? I think this one's a bit of a landmark for all of us. So yeah, very, very happy to have seen it. Can't wait to see it again. Shaun, I've already ordered the 4K. I've taken a look at the German 4K.
The German one?
Yeah.
You're getting in early on that.
I'm going to have to ask you where you get that from, because I'm interested. Okay, nice.
I'll hook you up. So yes, thank you very much everyone for listening. I have of course been the Fanatical Dragon. I've been joined by Jason and by Shaun. We are the Might Avengers. We'll be back for episode 22 next month.
Later, guys.
Farewell.